Hey everyone, welcome to the Humane Workforce Podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Lawrence from Practical Workforce Planning, and this podcast delves into the impact of artificial intelligence on the workforce and, in particular, job design. The aim being to create a workforce where humans and AI can thrive together. This is a podcast for HR professionals. However, if you're a business leader, a tech enthusiast, or simply curious about the future of work, you're welcome here too. And today, we are going to be exploring an application designed to support HR professionals called humaneer.app. And we're joined today by Annie Johnson, who is the co-founder and chief product officer of Humaneer app. Annie, welcome to the
All right.
podcast.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for having me. Really excited to be here.
Now, thanks for joining us. And can we start with telling us a bit about yourself, what your current role is, and how did you get there?
Yeah, it's a big story of, spending a very traditional career uh, climbing the ladder through human resources. I spent a lot of time in New Zealand and Australia working for international companies. I've spent time with SMEs and also popped out of the HR profession for a wee bit and became a general manager and then started my own consultancy called The Honest Human here in New Zealand, Christchurch, New Zealand. And throughout my career, it's just been this ongoing process of really wanting to support leaders and businesses to get their people strategy right. We have a number of humans in our business day to day. They're making big decisions. They're helping us grow. They're dealing with customers. And so for me, my career has been about how do we enable your team? How do we enable your employees to be able to walk through the door in the morning? Work is easy. They have decisions that are available to them. They have the data available to them. They can use systems that work and play nicely together. And how do we bring that into your people strategy as a priority? Um, so throughout my career, I've also been really interested in the tech space, and I've had a lot of opportunity to overhaul tech stacks, shift teams into newer technology. And one of the big moments in my career was really when ChatGPT burst onto the scenes. And so I had been exploring HR technology within my practice, and I was looking for ways that I could be more efficient as a consultant and serve up really great advice and tools and resources for my clients without having to get bogged down in the detail.
Mm.
No client wants to be on an hourly rate paying for administration. So when ChatGPT burst on the scenes, I really started to get deep into HR tech, and I really wanted to understand what is the technology available for us to help us shift our workloads and help us focus on the areas where I can sit in front of a client and I can work on people strategy and really help a business to 5x or 10x their outputs. And so I spent a good sort of 2, 3 years exploring technology, and AI was just that one bit of technology that was the big aha moment for me. It's almost like I had been waiting for that. It was something that I got really early on, and it made a lot of sense to me. And so after a lot of exploration, I started building a platform, SaaS platform here in New Zealand, which was being built to enable HR practitioners to use AI, feel safe about using AI and be confident with its use, but go really deep in the HR vertical to create something that you can pick up and use day one without feeling like you really need to understand behind the scenes of how AI works. And then I met Corinne and Kim about July last year, and we were having some really long, ongoing, regular chats about our shared vision. And we realized what we were building, if we could bring it together, we were all solving the problem. However, bringing Australia and New Zealand together into the one platform just made it a much bigger offering. And so I joined Humaneer in October last year. And what they had already built was this amazing community full of global HR practitioners who are looking for a space to come into where it's safe and you can connect and you can develop and you can be with your peers and ask for advice. And so I've jumped into the chief of product role. And so I'm developing Mac, which is our AI productivity tool. And it's built on the premise that we can use AI in our HR roles, and we can use that to remove a lot of the work that we need to do and spend time on, but it's not necessarily adding value to people or a business. And so we've been on a really fast trajectory of getting that ready and into our community for our early adopters.
Yeah, that's awesome. Like it's such an interesting space to be in at the moment. So
It
your
is.
take then on artificial intelligence, it's everywhere at the moment. It's a real buzzword. It's really picked up pace, I think,
Yeah.
with ChatGPT, that
Yeah.
only being one form of AI, the
Yeah.
generative AI.
Yeah.
What's your take on AI at the moment, more broadly?
Yeah. It's a really fast iterative process at the moment, and it's contributing to a lot of overwhelm with individuals and businesses. It's a lot to understand. It's a wave of information that is coming at us on a daily basis of updates and new models and new technology. And you're right, it hasn't, it's been around for a while. A lot of what we've been using up until the point that OpenAI burst onto the scenes, we had AI in our day-to-day lives. However, the generative AI space has really frog leaped how we use AI, and it's been a new technology for a lot of us to understand on what it does and what its capability actually is. And then what we're seeing at the moment is even greater application of AI with Gen AI, and that's around things like agentic workflows where people are now also needing to understand, what do we mean by agentic AI? How does that work? What do I need to be mindful of? And I think for a lot of people, the sheer overwhelm of iteration and information, you add one more bit of AI into that equation, and it can be a really confronting process to try and understand. It's hugely exciting, though. It's hugely exciting in terms of finding where it's best placed in a business or best placed in role design or where somebody spends their time. And I think when it's done right, it offers a business a really awesome way to get out of the weeds and get back into focusing on why you're there, whether that's customers, growth, sales, you name it. It's got a lot of potential to do a lot of things.
Yeah, so taking that more of a AI as a companion to
Yeah,
use to then maybe do some of the more lower level things that you're
yeah,
doing to then uplift you to be able to work up into a space where maybe you can be a little bit more strategic, have
yeah,
time to actually think, which feels like a
yes,
bit of a luxury when you're working in human resources on a
absolutely.
daily basis, isn't it? Just having
Yeah.
that little bracket, which then sort of going into, I'd like to delve into more detail now about
Mm,
humaneer.app.
mm,
And what is the problem that you're trying to solve in the HR space with that
yeah.
application?
So what we've been looking at and getting really close to our community and our customers to understand, there's a lot of HR tech out there on the scenes at the moment. A lot of it doesn't play nicely. A lot of it, you're having to bolt multiple platforms together. And often it actually creates unnecessary burdens in a practitioner's day where technology is being built for efficiency, but it's actually making you less efficient. And so
Mm.
you've kind of got this other effect of people feeling really frustrated by HR tech at the moment. And so with Kareen, Kim, and I, what we've been looking at is understanding in a HR professional's day, what is the stuff that we can mobilize really quickly using AI in a really sophisticated platform that as an HR practitioner, we're not asking you to come in with a really steep learning curve and understand prompt engineering. It's actually built so that a practitioner can use it to strip out layers of that administrative burden so they can go focus on the productive, strategic, human type work that we've actually all earned the right to be playing in that space, either as humans or through our education or the careers we've built. And so we're all about creating this as more or less a new category of HR tech that is there as a productivity partner. So if I can give you AI in your workflows that can get you further along a process, and then therefore you are using your strategic nous and your brains to actually finish that process, that's a much better way to operate in HR than sitting there behind your computer tapping away with letters and the administration that we get bogged down in.
Yeah, and we do, don't we? Like as HR professionals, I look back and think how much time all of that takes.
Yeah.
And having something that can help that's really good at that, why wouldn't you tap into that?
Yeah.
And from a productivity perspective, that's going to free up potentially a lot of time for you then to do the reading, do the research into other things that you might be interested in. And then I think traditionally as well, HR has always been accused, in my view, of not providing value per se at times. And executives see, well, what is the value of the HR function if they're not providing these strategic solutions and it's because I think the way that the structure has been set up and the role design and the processes and not having this additional assistance, you get bogged down in all that day to day and a lot of admin as well, traditionally in HR, which a lot of people
Absolutely.
don't realize going into it. That
Absolutely. Nobody signed up for a career learning how to write a great letter, right? And it's not even part of what we do best as humans. We are intellectual beings and we have high emotional intelligence and we are problem solvers. And so, I didn't enter a career to sit there reviewing letters and documenting file notes but that's where I found myself. And a lot of what we are building today is through our own journey in HR. I found, particularly with the Honest Human, I had SMEs crying out for action. They need to move swiftly. They need good decisions. They want somebody to sit with them and help them plan out what their business needs to look like. Letters don't provide that.
no.
I provide that. And so we are really on a journey with HR to start recreating how we work. It's not lost on us that if I could give you back even 5-6 hours in your week, how can you spend that time? Can I give CEOs and GMs their HR teams back? And therefore, what are they going to ask you for? What can we do? What can we do with people? Can we look at culture? Can we look at benefits? Can we look at leadership? It's all of that stuff that businesses are really asking for just to help them through this next sort of 5, 10, 15 years of what are we doing? Where are we going?
Which is really exciting because then we can be seen to be providing that value
Yeah.
even more so, which
Yeah.
empowers HR professionals. And I
Yeah.
feel over the years, we haven't necessarily been great at empowering the HR professional per se. So
Yeah.
you've created this AI powered agent called Mac,
Yeah.
and that is your product to enhance decision making for HR professionals. Can you talk a little bit about Mac and how it works and how would
Yeah.
HR professionals work with it?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a couple of parts to Mac, and we've spent time with customers and HR understanding, what are the biggest pain points you find in your day? Where are you really losing time that's not adding value? And one of those areas was around HR advice, whether that's searching for, complex legal entitlements that we both face between ANZ and Australia. We've got very similar legislation. So, looking on Google and having to go through acts, that's just not a great use of our time. And as a human, we are also biased in the information that we take in. So we built Ask Mac, where you can ask a compliance-based question or even a question about HR strategy. And Mac is designed to understand what you need as an HR practitioner. So it's not a generalist model like ChatGPT, who might think you're a marketer. They might think may assume you're an HR practitioner. But what Mac is actually designed to do is provide you an answer that is based on HR best practice. So it goes into layers of detail that ChatGPT doesn't understand what's sitting up here that you need, but Mac does. And so it surfaces information for you that you go, oh, I wouldn't have thought about that, or that's a really great point. I need to make sure I do that. So it's sort of bringing it to the surface for you, and it's right in front of you for you to then follow. It's all cited, so you can go direct to the source. So we really want to build that trust with our customer. They want to know where that information has come from. And the other great thing about Ask Mac is it provides a practitioner with all of the templates and documents and guides that you would need to then take the next step in that process. And that's the great thing about Mac, is that because it's designed with the HR voice, because it understands the nuance of your role and what you might need next, it suggests the templates for you, and then you can go ask Mac to create those so you can then take that next step. We call it following the bouncing ball.
Right. So Mac then knows that it's dealing with a HR practitioner.
That's
So
right. Yeah.
it's then catered specifically for that role
Yeah.
of a
Yeah.
HR practitioner. That's super
Yeah.
cool. I really
Yeah.
like the idea of that. So that's how you're
Yeah.
differentiating yourself from the chat GPTs and other tools that are out there. It's very
Absolutely.
niche, very specific into that
That's
particular
right. That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
domain.
And then the other side of Mac is around using voice as a key data point. So we in HR have meeting after meeting after meeting. I can't tell you how many books I've filled over my time, lost over my time. We all capture notes differently. We enter a meeting needing to document and respond and think about the next question, think about risk. And it's actually a really big role to play in any HR meeting. And so the meeting space enables you to capture your HR meeting, and then it surfaces the insights and actions from that meeting for you, but also generates the documents that you then need walking out of that meeting. They are there handed to you, so that even writing a file note, it could take me 45 minutes up to an hour to write a really good file note once I've tried to go through all of my scribble and remember what was said. This actually does it for you. So therefore, you walk out of an hour-long meeting, there's 45 minutes back in your day, because it's a file note that has been generated based, once again, on best practice. And so all of the documents that it produces uses that HR voice. It's based on what we need today to ensure that we are compliant and we're delivering what we need. We can forget about it, it's all done for us, and then we can go off and then spend time in other areas.
Oh, 2 points I love on that one. The first one is around I was never a good note taker. I always
Mm,
felt a bit insecure about like being in meetings and then trying to take notes. And then you know what happens when you go towards your desk, you get that sidetracked by somebody, but you've
yeah.
got the meeting clear in your head and you need to
Mm,
get it out. You need to almost look at your notes and then quickly type them up. But as we know then, if you get sidetracked in that, you might not get back to that to the next day. And then
yes.
you don't understand. I've been in a situation where I'm like, do I understand my writing here? What is this? Like,
Yeah.
and then you
Yep.
feel like you may have missed something crucial. So you have to go back to the other people in the meeting and go, is my understanding of this correct?
Mm.
Whereas
And it's a loop, and then it creates more time, right? You're
you're
like, oh,
spending so
who's,
much time trying to
yeah,
get these notes right because they're important.
yeah,
If you're
yeah.
recording it, the second part of my that piques my interest there is Is there any legal requirement? Like if you're in a disciplinary meeting or something, and it might be easier
Mm.
to record that because then it can note take. And you know how
Yeah,
some people said, I didn't say that or I did say that. If you've recorded it, obviously it's more sound, um,
yeah,
sort of factual based,
that's right. Yeah,
evidence or whatever you want to call it.
yeah,
Is there any sort of legal thing around that you'd have to get like your policy internally to say we're using humaneer.app? Signing
yeah.
up to the fact that we will be recording particular meetings because you could use it for coaching as well, couldn't you? Where,
Yes,
your
yeah,
coaching meetings with people like managers and to
yeah,
then come
yeah.
back, what are the top
Any type of
three?
meeting. Yep.
Yeah. Like so many,
It's
I love the whole concept of it, but I just wonder, are there any downsides from a legal point of view?
Yeah, it's a really good point, Sarah. What we've built into Mac is a consent process for the user. So
Right.
before you start recording, you've got a wee reminder that pops up about consent. And we do that based on best practice because we are big believers that using AI, you need to be transparent. If you have got somebody's voice as data, you need to help them understand why you're recording that meeting. And one of those reasons will be that in recording this, we capture everything. There is no bias. You hear what you need to confirm your story. I hear what I need to confirm. So it's all there. It's all there. And then the way we use AI is to produce the documentation from that meeting. It's not making any decisions based on that meeting. And so it's about reassuring the person or people in the meeting that you are simply using it as a productivity tool. And before we got to this point, I was recording all of my meetings with my clients or employees, and I never once had pushback because it was always about this protects you and it protects me. So if that's an employment relations situation, that's a really good place to be where you've got a really clean transcript and there's no disputes. Like you say, for coaching, we all hear things differently. We all walk into a meeting or a conversation with our own bias. And the moment those words, leave your mouth, you lose the right to interpret it, right? Because it goes through somebody else's ear and their filter. So what Mac actually does is it gives you a completely unbiased insight into that meeting and how the documents are then generated.
Wow. I really like the idea of that one as well, but it might test, some paradigms, mightn't it too?
Yeah,
Because if
yeah,
it's unbiased and it's coming back and you see it, um, that's going to actually be a bit of a mirror for people too, isn't it?
100%, 100%.
Go, I
And
didn't read it like that.
yeah, yeah. And I part of it is about working with our industry to change the way we work. And so nobody ever created amazingly accurate information and documentation from notes, right? But
Mm,
we've been taking them since forever.
mm.
You always take notes. Whereas, surfacing it in an unbiased way, you will pick up on things as a practitioner that you will start to see patterns and you will start to get insights around, gosh, I always miss that point, or that point I need to go deeper on. It's actually about helping HR become better practitioners and rework their role design as well.
Yeah. So that kind of segues into my next question around the podcast being focused on AI and the impact on work design.
Mm.
So how do you think Mac will impact HR practitioners' work design?
For us, we are building Mac in a way where phasing the change or the shift with HR is really important. I think if we get too far down the road and we haven't helped our industry to find ways to use AI to free us up or make us more strategic, if we don't do that now, a couple of years down the track, they're probably going to be slammed with some sort of form of big AI technology that will force them there anyway. And so I think what we're doing with Mac is more around working with our industry and helping them to feel confident and comfortable with AI, and then see how you spend your time. Where are you spending your time now that you're not having to write letters? And then if you're using your time in a different way, how else can we help you? with that. It's not just about productivity and administration. It's also about helping HR to use AI as a thought partner. So if it's surfacing insights for you in an unbiased way, that is a fantastic data point if you've even just got 6 months worth of transcriptions. So we are partnering really closely with our industry. We know it's a really big change curve, but we are believers that we start now and we start with confidence and we start with trust. And if we work with you and you come on our journey and we build Mac alongside you, chances are is that the way you start to then shift the way you work, Mac will be there.
Yeah, I think it's a great place for people to start in HR is actually using it in their own role,
Yeah,
isn't it? That's the best way for them to, for any person really to understand AI and how it
yeah,
can benefit you and how to utilize it and things you do like about it and things that you might not like about it.
yeah,
And that's with any job. Anyway,
yeah,
there's elements
yeah,
that you do warm towards. Note taking wasn't one of mine, which is why I would love Mac.
yeah, yeah,
So you go, you use it to help you with
yeah,
areas that maybe you're not so great in or don't like as much, and it can do it. And
yeah.
it does it in a way with that unbiased lens that you're talking about. I hadn't really thought about that too much,
Mm,
but
mm,
the unbiased aspect I really like as well. Because as we know in HR, it's a balance, isn't it? It's a balance of fairness between what's right for the employer and also keeping that balance of treating employees with respect and dignity at all times.
100%,
And
100%.
as HR practitioners, we've constantly got that push and pull
Mm,
of are we
mm,
getting that balance right? Even though
mm,
sometimes it looks like the balance might be more towards the employer, good
mm.
HR practitioners are always behind the scenes trying to get that balance right.
That's right.
There.
It's a role that has a lot of trust. I totally get that point, Sarah, where you've got employees sitting across the table from you, in probably a very difficult meeting. If they know that you are using something to protect everybody, imagine how that could change the culture and receptiveness to dealing with HR in the future, and that's how I built trust in using AI. It is as much about protecting us as it is you and enabling people just to have access to that data, enabling that transparency on where it's going and what they can see. That's going to help build that trust and transparency, which is hugely important through this change curve.
Massive. And earlier you were touching on the community engagement aspect of humaneer. Can you
Mm,
expand a bit on that? And what does that look like? And how does that work at the moment in terms of getting people to test it? You've gone through a
yeah,
number of phases to launch your product.
yeah,
Um, and yeah, so that
mm,
community part seems very
yeah.
strong for your company.
It is, and it's a really important part of who we are because when you look at the growth alone in that community, you can see that it's starting to answer a call. It's starting to answer a problem statement where HR is ready to become part of a movement around shifting the way we work and not getting stuck in the dark ages. It's like going from the Nokia phone to the iPhone. I want to be part of that. And part of being in the human communities, you get everything. You get access to us, you get access to your peers. We've got wonderful mentoring programs running in there at the moment. And it's really answering the call for a need of an open community where I can show up. People understand the challenges I face in HR on a day-to-day basis. It's a great place to ask questions and seek support. And so having the community has been our insight into how HR is operating today, either with or without AI. And so being so close to that community and having them as part of our alpha and beta testing and now our early adopter access, we spend time with them listening and understanding, is this going to solve the problem or where to next or what's going to come down the line? And that's part of us supporting HR to not only understand how they use it in their role design, but they've got a big role in shepherding big organizations through this transition as well. So it's twofold, particularly when it comes to AI, but there is just so much other support with thought leader think tanks, and just that access into
Yeah.
peers. And yeah, it's really neat, and it's growing hugely by the day.
And that doesn't surprise me because even when you're working in a HR team, because everyone gets so busy,
Mm,
sometimes it's really hard to get access to your manager,
yeah,
even in HR, because they're dealing with some particular like big issue that needs their full attention, or they're getting pulled in a number of different directions. You just want to have that little conversation quickly to get a few things answered.
yeah,
I think we've all been there where it can feel lonely. Like
yeah.
even when you're in a HR team and you've got colleagues, because they're all busy as well,
The big
doing
one,
things
isn't
and
it?
trying to get the work done. So
Mm,
if there's a community outside of that of like-minded people, sometimes that's good to hear that you're not the only one going through particular things. And then if
yeah.
there's a particular tech that you've created or something that can make your job easier and you can
Mm,
work, the whole podcast is about AI and humans thriving together. It
mm,
would be an example of that, the humaneer.app, where,
mm,
you know, that's what it's about ultimately as well. Like, and
yeah.
AI, I keep saying to people, the train has left the station. You either get on board or you're going to get
Yeah.
left behind. So just say
Mm,
you're Annie, I'm more traditionally a laggards type person with tech. So I took ages to get an iPhone. I was like,
yeah.
this, someone
Yeah.
showed it to me. I went, oh, I don't need that. Like, that's okay.
Yeah.
I'll come to that when I'm ready.
Yeah.
And then a few other people showed me over time. I'm like, still on the old phone. They're like, what are you doing? And I was like, one of the last people to get an iPhone, I think, in like the friendship group. Um,
We're one
what?
of the cool ones.
I don't know if cool. I'm pretty daggy, I think. But if you could give a piece of advice to HR professionals, and maybe in particular the laggards like me,
Mm,
traditionally who have been a bit more apprehensive around new tech coming in and how it can assist them. What sort of advice would you give to that type of, someone with that kind of mindset for AI adoption then?
yeah. It's a really interesting one, Sarah. And look, I've probably been there myself in different stages of my career where new technology might come along. We've had cloud come in, we've had, I helped a big accounting firm with accountants starting to use Zero. They loved punching away in a spreadsheet all day long, and then Zero comes along, and the big question is, well, what am I going to do now? Well, you're going to go spend that time with your clients talking about business. And so there are those people quite naturally and normally just are still struggling to use AI. And it might be because one, you've had a bad experience with HR tech in the past where it's been clunky, it's been difficult to understand, it hasn't solved the problem that you're trying to have answered. It's been a really horrible onboarding process, not quick to use. So all of those sorts of things contribute, I think, to this point with AI as well. And for me, it's about starting, but starting in a really safe way. So understanding if you're going to use ChatGPT, for example, why you should be on a paid subscription and how to turn your data off, and
Mm.
just make sure that you are using it in a way where it's not a mind reader. And I think some people have big expectations of AI, but you do need to understand its limitations as well. So just starting and having a play with some very basic use cases is the best way to get into it. But then finding the right resources out there that don't take you too far. So it's very easy to see on LinkedIn that you've got to be on this big latest and greatest tool, and this is the new model coming out and what it does. And I think you've got to find your space where you can ignore some of that and just start safely, build your confidence, and then you can start to take on more and more within your day. And you will find naturally where you are using it to chip away on the same tasks over and over again. And there you've found your first great use case.
That's great advice because it is a little bit of a stressful world at the moment with all the noise
Yeah.
coming at, like when you look up, I get overstimulated sometimes just looking through like the LinkedIn feed and then you've got
Mm,
Facebook and then you've got all these other things and you're looking through and it's
mm,
hard to know what to pay attention to and what not to pay attention to at times. And
yeah.
then the
It,
brain can
it's
fill up very quickly.
it can, and there's a lot of people out there that have jumped on the AI hype curve, and a lot of their news or presenting is more about them showcasing their knowledge than actually helping people to understand what they should do with this. And I think there's a lot of responsibility on us that are building AI tech to help with that, to break it down in the non-technical jargon. Nobody wants to sit there listening to all of the logarithms and, acronyms. People just want to know, what do I do? How do I use it effectively? Is it safe? When is it not safe? And what are the best tools to use? Because you can very quickly sign up to multiple subscriptions where you just get frustrated.
Mm.
So, my accountant used to say, "Do you need all these subscriptions, Annie?" And I was like, "No, but I signed up. And so here we are, and I don't use them." So there is a lot. And so pulling yourself away from it every now and again, or finding the people you find speak your language
Mm.
in a safe way that's not overwhelming. When you find those people, just stick with them.
Yeah,
Don't go too deep into the other stuff, the
that's
back
great
room.
advice. Very sound advice. So, where do people find you to seek your assistance and find out more about Humaneer and what you've got to offer, Annie?
Yes, so you can join the humaneer community for free. So humaneer.app, sign up and jump on in there, because that's where we have all of our updates around Mac. We've got access to all of the demos. And not only that, you get some pretty cool HR buddies to go lean on when you need them. And we're constantly traveling around Australia and New Zealand to host our micro meets with that community as well. So that's where we spend time with our community members in smaller groups so that you get access to us. And we will always, talk about the latest and greatest things that are happening in HR, and always give a cheeky update on Mac as well. So head to the community. It's such a fantastic space, and it's where you'll get the biggest updates around Mac. We like to reward that community with the first news.
That's awesome.
Mm,
Thank you so much for your time today, Annie. And it's been really
pleasure,
interesting to
Sarah.
hear about the work you're doing in humaneer.app and how it can be used to add value to HR professionals and their role and ultimately their customers then as
Yeah,
well.
that's
So
right.
if they're better at, more productive and feel more empowered, they get, your customers that HR serve are going to get a better customer experience. So
Yeah, yeah,
to
yeah.
to my audience, I hope you've learnt something here today and get you thinking about AI adoption and using it in your business and how you can effectively apply it to your job. And just by, Annie's advice, just start
Mm,
somewhere, start
yeah.
smaller, and then just do little bits and build your confidence in it because we only really
Mm,
build confidence probably by doing. So
that's
this is a
right.
time just to start experimenting and be kind to yourself. Nobody knows it all. No one will ever know it all, except maybe AI one day, but
Yeah.
not us. As human beings, we can't possibly take it all in. So just, have a go and see what happens with it. But stay tuned for upcoming episodes. And in the meantime, if you want to reach out to me, anything about AI, workforce, work design, please contact me via my website, Practical Workforce Planning. And thank you for joining us today.